This is a JW podcast. You're now listening to Game of Clones. Hello everyone, welcome back to Game of Clones, the new Star Wars podcast. We're now on episode 2. I decided to not do anything Star Wars related last week in the sort of respect to George Floyd and what's happening over in America and in the UK as well, sort of all over the world now. I thought I would do a podcast episode which is now available for you to listen to with a friend called Aaron, also known as Hey It's Double A, or Oh Hey It's Double A to give him his official title. We did a podcast, a two-parter, all about why Black Lives Matter is important. So if you'd like to listen to that, there'll be a link in the description. And that's sort of why there wasn't a post last week, and it was just sort of out of respect for George Floyd, and I don't want to take anything away from the Black Lives Matter movement for that particular week, and in general I don't want to take away from it. But yeah, but I thought now's the time to record a good one, a good Star Wars episode. I've been watching some Star Wars this week, as I always do. It's my favourite show and favourite film film series. So today's episode, as you can tell by the title, is The Phantom Menace Deserved Better. So this is sort of like an episode 1 review. I might do that in this style, but this is just something I want to talk about really. So episode 1 is technically the 4th film in the series of Star Wars and the Skywalker saga, but it's also technically the first. It's what we get to know Anakin from a young kid, and we also get to learn a bit more about him, and we see where Star Wars all started back in the back in the olden days. I don't know, it's weird. The Star Wars timeline is a bit messed up. Obviously, I don't know how to talk about it in order of release or in order of continuity, but the first Star Wars film, episode 1, The Phantom Menace, this film was probably one of the least rated films in the Star Wars franchise. A lot of people don't like it, and it's understandable why. But at the same time, this is one of my favourite Star Wars movies. I was born, I think, the year after it came out, so I was sort of grown up on the whole prequel trilogy in a way. Especially with them coming out, they'd have the most hype, and because I was young, I didn't understand all the politics behind the films and I just enjoy it because it was Star Wars, and that's sort of the mentality I've had going into the sequel trilogy. Just enjoy it as Star Wars at the end of the day. Who like the nitty bits, I can understand why people are annoyed at, but no one should hate Star Wars because they're nitty bits. Otherwise, we'd hate everything. Even Marvel films, they're not the best. But anyway, the reason why I think it deserves better is because it introduces a lot of new characters into Star Wars. Like, we've got the basics: Luke, Leia, Obi-Wan, all these other characters. But we also get to see characters like Padme Amidala, who is not even mentioned really. She's just referred to as their mother, and she died when they were young at childbirth really. So we get to see her and what she was like, and we can sort of see like the Leia Padme comparisons, like mother like daughter. We also get Qui-Gon Jinn, also Darth Maul. We get the whole Trade Federation and Newt Gunray mainly. We get to learn more about Obi-Wan because we only see him really in episode 4, and we see 2 scenes of him in the 4 and 5 in 5 and 6 combined. Sorry. So we get to learn more about him. We also have the introduction of Mace Windu and all the Jedi Council. We get Watto, Shmi Skywalker. We get all these different characters, and they're done very well. And I think, just like Marvel has got all the praise for having the best casting in the world, Star Wars equally has that casting. Obviously, it's a lot easier with the alien characters, but like Mace Windu, you couldn't picture anyone else other than Samuel L. Jackson, much like Nick Fury. You've got Qui-Gon Jinn casted terrifically as Liam Neeson. You've got Obi-Wan Kenobi casted very well as Ewan McGregor. especially, well, not so much the first one, but in 2 and 3 you can't really say otherwise. So I think Star Wars in that way has many good comparisons with the likes of Marvel for their casting. Um, but then there are characters like in every franchise who are debatable. Like obviously Anakin Skywalker when he's young, he's only going to be used once unless he's like is an actor who looks very young but then can look old in the next one. And I feel sorry for the person who ended up playing young Anakin Skywalker, whose name's completely slipped my mind at the minute, but he was eventually bullied and sort of quit acting because of Star Wars, which is a bit sad. But I think he did an okay job. It was mainly down to the writing, but anyway, that's enough of the casting. But I think, yeah, the casting you can't deny it's phenomenal. Mm. Even Darth Maul, the stunt man Ray Park, who he does an awesome job as Darth Maul. You can't like no one else. You can't really. I mean, you could have lots of martial arts people, but the way he like is so athletic with Darth Maul, it's amazing. Um, Another reason why I think the Phantom Menace deserves a lot better is because of its sort of new and unique plot for Star Wars. Because the main thing that the sequel trilogy has that is criticized a lot is the fact that it's sort of the original trilogy just duplicated again. So like Episode 7 is sort of a carbon copy of Episode 4 in a way. Um, Episode 5 and Episode 8 are very different, but Episode 8 is not very good. So no one's really comparing those two, and Episode 5 is amazing. But then, and sort of Episode 6 and Episode 9 are very similar as well. Like, there's a moment like the Emperor Palpatine, he like says to both, well, he shows Luke and Rey that he's gonna kill everyone in space, and then he doesn't kill anyone in space, and then Emperor Palpatine dies. So it's very like both of them are very similar. Whereas with Episode 1, it's sort of completely different to Episode 4 and going on Episode 7, and it starts off a new trilogy in an awesome way. And that's something like, and you also get to see lots of different sides of Star Wars. Like you see, like we go on to Tatooine, and you see the whole gambling with the whole pod racing, and this Star Wars introduces slavery in the universe. Like what other like is that different? Like, you can't really compare it to anything else. Not that I'm saying that like slavery is good in Star Wars, but you know it's something that needs like is addressed in it, and that's something that probably you wouldn't get in Episode 7 for sure, and probably something that you wouldn't get in Episode 4. But it's interesting. Um, and like with the whole pod racing, you get a whole different genre of Star Wars films. Like it would surprise me if in the future there was a Fast and Furious pod racing drift or whatever. Like I know that Star Wars Resistance is sort of based around racing and like spaceship and flying, and it's got a whole whatever to do with racing. I haven't really seen the show, so I can't comment on it. But like just having that pod racing there is referenced a lot in Star Wars, and like it's sort of the main point of the thing is that's how Anakin comes about, is because he's the only human pod racer and he's force sensitive, and that's why he's able to do it. And then he becomes a Jedi, and then he becomes Darth Vader, blah blah blah. But yeah, I think that's Phantom Menace is sort of underrated in that aspect, but it also has a lot of unexpected twists. Like for example, Qui-Gon Jinn's death. That I knew that was unexpected for me. Apart other than the fact that I played the Lego game, so I knew it was coming when I saw it the first time. But like, obviously, you can compare that no one was expecting Obi-Wan to die in the original trilogy, but at the same time, you've got Liam Neeson playing the character. Like Liam Neeson was a very big name at the time, and you would have expected that George Lucas would have reused him for the next film and for the next film afterwards, but he doesn't. He kills him off, basically. Whether it's because his salary was a bit too high, but that's a different question. Like, but that was a big plot twist at the time. Like, he was going to train Anakin. He was like going to be a further mental figure for Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he doesn't. He dies in the end. And another a big plot twist in the film was Queen Amidala isn't actually Queen Amidala. Uh, Queen Amidala isn't actually the queen, but she's a decoy, and she is disguised as a servant. Like that was a big twist at the time. Like not many different films have that sort of unique twist that I'm aware of anyway. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but that's something that's very unique. And then also Anakin being a slave, like you wouldn't have expected. Like watching episode 4, 5, and 6, I can categorically say that I wouldn't expect Anakin Skywalker, the father of Luke Skywalker and Leia, to be a slave back in the day. Like that's a unique twist, in my opinion. Whether you've got any more twists you can think of in episode 1, do let me know. But that's all I can think of. And another reason that I really like the Phantom Menace is we get to see what life was like before the Empire. We get to see Coruscant that we only get to see for a split, like 5 seconds in the end sequence of Return of the Jedi. We get to see that at its peak in a way. We get to see all the spaceships flying around. We get to see what, in a way, life is like on Coruscant. We get to see the Jedi Temple like we see lots of different Jedi. Some mentioned in my last video or last podcast episode, but we get to see all these different Jedi in a way flourish. Not really, but like we get the introduction of the Jedi, and that's really cool for me. But then now I'm going to talk about some stuff that I don't like about the film, and you'll probably agree with a lot of these. The main thing that I don't like about episode 1 is, like, obviously I've mentioned the Queen being a decoy. The thing I don't really understand about the whole use of a decoy is when the Queen is, I'd never really know when she is the Queen or when she's been disguised. Like, I couldn't tell you if she's disguised for the whole film or just little bits. Like, when she's using a decoy, is the decoy making all the big decisions? So like when the Queen goes to Naboo or goes back to Naboo, was that the Queen's decision or was that the decoy's decision? Obviously it was the Queen's decision, but we don't know. And when the Queen is decoyed, is there some sort of like hand signal, like, or like a so Queen, do you want to go back to Naboo? And then the Queen, disguised as a decoy, like as a servant, just nods. Is it worked out that way? And like when she was in the big in the Senate, obviously that's what it's called. When she was in the Senate in her little pod floating around, was that decoy Padme or was that Queen Padme? I never understood that. And it's something I didn't understand watching it 2 nights ago. So that's something that I never understood. The decision of the council not training Anakin was also something I didn't like. I didn't understand why. Um, for me, it sort of saw a bit of a corruption within the council. Like at the end, when Obi-Wan says, "I'm going to train him," Yoda's like, "No, sorry, that's not going to happen." But then Obi-Wan was like, "No, I am going to train him. Like, there's nothing you can do about it." Yoda then says, "Oh, okay, well, if the council gives you permission, like, is there a point of having a council if Yoda's just going to make the big shots at the end of the day? Like, he's the Grand Master of the Jedi, so it's understandable if that's the case, but like, and he should have the power to do that. But like, what's the point in saying, oh no, the council says no, and then when it comes to it, then he's like, oh yeah, go on then. The council says we'll grant you permission. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, have a bit of backbone, Yoda, or whatever. Um, so that's something that I didn't like. And then obviously I don't watch Star Wars for the political side of things. I don't really know. Like, I can understand why it was brought in because that's something that happens in the real world. Like, there is a democracy, there is all this and that, but the whole corruption, like, I think in a Star Wars film that shouldn't be included. And I don't understand how the Queen, who's not a member of the Senate, can then rule for a vote of no confidence. That's something that should have happened in the film, but it should have come from like Palpatine at the time. Senator Palpatine should have said, "Oh, I vote for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum." That's how it should have gone down in my eyes. I don't understand how the Queen has access to call those shots, but maybe that's how it is in politics. I just don't understand. I don't understand politics at all. But yeah, so that sort of wraps up the whole episode and the point of the episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've seen episode 1 now. Hopefully you agree with the same points I have. If you've got any different points, do let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed, well, if I say the comments, if you're watching on or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or anywhere else that's non-visual based, hop over to YouTube and drop down a comment in there. That's the best way of me seeing the comments, because there is no comment section on Spotify or Apple or anywhere else like that. So, but anyway, if you do enjoy, hop over to YouTube and leave a like. It really means a lot to me that the content I'm putting out is sort of like you guys like it at the end of the day. But I'm not doing this for likes, I'm doing this for myself. It's a nice little bit of serotonin. I think that's the word. I don't know. It's a nice bit of happiness I get if I see someone liked it. I'm like, oh, someone's liked it. But anyway, thanks for listening. Do hop over to the Pizza Time podcast and watch episode 13, I believe it was. Go watch the Why Black Lives Matter is Important podcast episode I did with Aaron. It's a really like powerful discussion we had. It's an hour and a half long, so it is quite long, but for me it's a very worth, like, if I'm going to spend an hour and a half of my time doing something, I'd quite happily watch a podcast or listen to a podcast like this, like that. Anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I'm wearing this Black Lives Matter t-shirt, or hope just about anyway. I'm selling those on my clothing line website that I have. All the profits that go from this shirt go straight to the Black Lives Matter movement at www.blacklivesmatter.com. I know that I wanted a shirt like this, and I thought the best way of doing it was just making it myself and then sending over the profits straight to the movement. But if you want to donate to the movement, just go on www.blacklivesmatter.com and they'll have a whole donation page on there. Yeah, that's a cause I strongly believe in, if you couldn't tell already. Yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. May the force be with you. Bye.